welcome to Stampscaping 101. We have another scrap to scene attempt video here. I never know how these are going to turn out, but I was going through my convention paper supply and I had a bunch of kind of scrap pieces of paper where on this one I'm sure I was demonstrating the use of the Reed's large stamp. I use this a lot, but I was probably showing people or showing someone, you know, just how to stamp this out without kind of smashing the front of it, and how to overlap and change the angle, okay? Possibly doing it in different impression, ghosting, I don't know, whatever you call it, the multiple stamping to get the multiple different values out of it to create depth, okay? But this one's kind of a problem. I have this isolated impression of it right in the middle there, and with these around the perimeter, it's easy to do. I could just put any type of scene in the middle there. I can even have this like a little pond scene. This could be grass that's kind of horizontal to the ground. But I'll try to make something out of it. This one's kind of that isolated problem impression right there. So let's see what we can do here. All right, I'm just going to go, I was thinking I'd do this kind of open, kind of window to the sky type of thing, kind of a worm's eye view looking up at the sky. I usually do it with trees, but we'll do it with reeds here. I mean, you can do it with any type of foliage type of thing where you have this kind of perimeter here and you're looking upwards, like you're laying down in the grass or whatever. I'm going to do this at nighttime, and the reason I'm doing this at nighttime because the angles here are all really forced, okay? I'm stamping this at 90 degrees from each other, where I would normally do this kind of in a circular pattern right here. And I need to get rid of some of these things, so this is a little chart here that I did in my previous video. What we have are light areas, which is the white of the paper, and we have dark, so there's a lot of contrast. There's no, well, there's a few intermediate values in here with the kind of the lighter impressions, but we need to fill in a lot of this area in here to obscure the angles in here, okay? Now, that's one of those things that we can utilize. We can utilize value. If there's a problem area of a scene, or it's just kind of a weaker area of the scene, what we can do is, if you want to de-emphasize something, what you do is you decrease the contrast between that the objects in that area and the background, meaning you just kind of make the area behind it darker, and that's just super easy to do. So you emphasize things by kind of creating a little bit more contrast. Often you have things kind of in a spotlit area if you want to bring attention to it, meaning you leave things kind of in an area darker, okay? Or lighter, I should say. And the areas that you want to do, you know, around it to bring emphasis to those items, is you make them darker, okay? Now I want to de-emphasize a lot of the contrast in this one, of course. Okay, now these are all dry. I stamped this out in the last Mesa, Arizona show, which was back in March, so these are plenty dry. But what I'll do is I'll add in some extra impressions of this after I tone this whole scene in. I don't want to add a ton of ink down here and have to wait for it to dry. I just want this to be a real quick lesson. Okay, so just a paper towel here with some dye-based ink, okay? Oh, I need to add that. I'll add this moon in here. You can stamp the moon now, or you can stamp it later. If I stamp it right now, then I know exactly where the moon placement will be. And we'll use this moon right here, soft light. Now, I think I'll go for a middle tone, kind of a medium tone blue on this one. This one's called light blue from Marvy, but a similar one might be Bahama blue in the Memento inks if you have a bunch of distress inks. Something like a Mermaid Lagoon or a Broken China would be perfect, okay? On these ones right here, I don't have the stamp pad, I just have the re-inkers for these ones because I already have real similar tones to those two in pad form. So if colors are real similar, you know, I usually don't bother getting a pad for it, but I do like to use the ink, so I just get the re-inker for it. And then I just apply the re-inker fluid with whatever applicator I'm using. So you don't always have to get the pads. I know the pads are always really convenient to use, but You know, I don't want to have, 90 different stamp pads out, but I don't mind having, you know, 40 different stamp pads and 40 different re-inkers if they're all kind of different colors and they bring their own kind of qualities to the table. Okay, now I kind of wiped off the perimeter of this because my pad, I could tell it was super juicy, and I don't want it to start to stamp out too dark. You can stamp out things darker by using a darker color, but sometimes you get darker just by using, it's the degree of, dampness in your pad too. So this one was super juicy, so that's why I kind of wiped off the perimeter a little bit. And when I do that on sky figures, they'll stamp out lighter, and then if they stamp out lighter on the perimeter, that means they kind of fade out into the surrounding area, and it makes it easier for me to blend in that perimeter area if it fades out inherently in the impression. So if you don't want something to, if you want to make things kind of a little bit easier to blend in, and as you can see, I'm just using a light color that's already blended in right there. So this is easy stuff if you make it easy, as far as the process goes, okay? And you can't tell me this is a hard thing to do. This is all easy types of processes here. You can do this on matte paper too. Matte paper, you'll just need to, I would recommend moistening your applicator a little bit, not sopping wet, but you can do it with re-inker fluid, or you can put a little water on here and then dab your applicator into your ink and then just apply accordingly. If you do add water though, it does, of course, water down the degree of intensity of whatever color you're working in. It'll be a little bit duller as opposed to however bright it could be potentially. And it also lightens it in terms of value because you're diluting the ink. Okay, so that is, this one's Salvia Blue here. I don't know, let's go back and utilize some of this right here. So I was mentioning, sometimes I just get the re-inker fluid for this, and it's because a lot of times what we're using our inks for are to blend in some colors. So I'm just putting some re-inker fluid directly on this. That's not a problem. Sometimes you get more ink by using the re-inker fluid as opposed to dabbing this, or whatever applicator you're using, into a pad, ink pad. See that right there? So this is a distress ink. Get a lot of good coverage because this is so much wetter too. It's darker too, so it's giving me a darker amount of coverage, but it's just like putting shoe polish on a shoe or something like that. Just go around there like so. I want that moon to stand out, so I'm not toning it out. So a lot of people see something like this and they say, hey, how did you get that white like that? Was it some kind of resist or bleaching process? Thinking you went in and bleached that out, but you just say, no, it's just you leave the moon as is. It's just the white of the paper, and you just color around it, okay? All right, so that was the Broken China, and we're all done with that. It's really quick. Probably took all of, I don't know, for that one color, I don't know, was it even 30 seconds? Now, as you move up in your value scheme, okay, now I'm just using the same paper towel here. This one's the Mermaid Lagoon. I think it's a little bit darker. Yeah, see like that? And you just kind of blend that out. This is glossy cardstock. You can, like I said, you can use other types of cardstock. And if you use the re-inker fluid, because those other types of cardstocks absorb your ink faster, what you do is you just have a little bit more of a kind of a wetter applicator to get more coverage, and just use kind of a lighter touch when applying it, okay? Because it, the matte or satin, what else? Dull, silk, those types of paper surfaces are less coated than glossy, so they do absorb in. So maybe instead of doing this, this is like a matte surface, of course, it's just copy paper, see that? I mean, I can get really streaky, and it is set because, of course, it absorbed really fast, but you can also go for a very soft tone. See, that's just on, matte paper, copy paper, just junk paper, right? And you can go for a very smooth application of it. You just use a little bit less pressure. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's see. Let's move into kind of a navy blue here. Okay, see, it's a little bit darker. If you're using something like Memento inks, you can use the Danube blue, or the Distress inks, you can use something like Blueprint Sketch. Blueprint Sketch is a really interesting ink. It to me, it feels like it has a little bit of a different chemistry to it almost. It feels like it can really stain. Like especially like my fingers get really stained with that ink. It washes right out, but I don't know. The composition of it seems different to me. It's real similar to the Prussian Blue from Marvy. There's just something to those really dark colors. I don't know why. Let's give it a try. All right, see that reed impression right there is still standing out quite a bit, and I don't like it, but we're not there yet. It's not supposed to blend in. It'll take us going all the way to black before that even remotely starts to blend out. Okay, you have to kind of get to the same color that the darkest image is stamped in for things to start blending together. So just kind of take your time. This is Blueprint Sketch, and like I said, it's pretty dark. You see that right there? All right, now this paper is starting to kind of move towards super saturation. I can add more, but I would just have to kind of allow it to dry. So what I mean by that is, as I apply this, I'm almost kind of removing some ink as well, okay? Because it's kind of moving around on the surface. It's like this ink is now kind of floating because of all the other inks and all of the moisture that the surface has absorbed, and the moisture is now kind of filling up the pulp of the paper a little bit. I wouldn't say it's really filling it up. I mean, it's still kind of surface-oriented, but nevertheless, it is getting quite damp. Okay. Alright, darker colors are a little bit trickier to blend in, but, you know, as you can see, just kind of keep moving it, and it's fine. Okay, now see, these reeds aren't standing out quite as much because of the contrast. Remember, it used to be as white as that moon right there, all around in this area. So when you look at something at kind of arm's distance, it does blend in a lot better now at this point in time. Okay, let's see. I thought I might have to switch applicators, but it's still working pretty good. This is still that Blueprint Sketch in here. I just dabbed in some of the Marvy blue as well. That. Okay. Trying to really add a decent amount of ink to the perimeter here to really blend in those reeds. I really need those to be kind of obscured, just especially because I need to blend in this one so that the encroachment of black is going to have to be fairly profound on this one, just because of the location of that impression. Okay, so hopefully it looks like that moon is standing out a little bit lighter as I go. Just because of the contrast. The darker you take the perimeter, the lighter whatever areas or objects have been left light look even lighter as a result. You take things around the perimeter one step darker. By contrast, the light areas seem one step lighter. Okay, here's black. I thought I would have to kind of switch applicators, but this is working just fine. It wasn't even a new one when I started. It was like a scrap piece of paper towel from maybe the previous video or something. Alright, kind of move it around a little bit. Now as I go like this, I'm getting some of these types of marks. So if I do that, I just kind of, you know, go like this. I'll show you again on copy paper how easy it is to blend this in, okay? This is, again, straight black ink on copy paper, which is going to be the cheapest, like most absorbent paper, you know, of all that we would probably be utilizing if we would never use it. But see that right there? You can get a nice, easy application of it. Okay, it doesn't have to be harsh. Like if we go like that, then we'll get these harsh marks on it. Okay, so just keep it nice and smooth, and you get those nice gray tones as well, meaning you'll have a lot of control over how dark an area gets, because, you know, it doesn't apply real super dark. It's not like we get 100% black if we go like that, you know. It's just kind of a light gray. And the more you apply, the more it builds up. Sometimes what happens is I want it to get darker faster, you know. But, like I said, the saturation of ink on the scene is quite extensive, especially on the perimeter where I'm adding the most amount of ink. So sometimes the darker you go, the slower it really transfers to the paper, okay? Because if you're kind of tapping wet into a wet surface, the ink doesn't transfer over very fast. Okay. But it's kind of coming together, though, don't you think? You put this same value as your kind of framing device, you know, this value of this darkness right here. And, you know, look at that. It starts to all kind of semi come together. I need to do this other impressions still, but coming around. Okay, let's see if I have some Prussian blue. Prussian blue is really quite dark. I don't know. It might even look darker than the black. I don't know. It is pretty dark. Okay, cutting down the contrast between those reeds in the background a little bit more. This is a really dark blue, but it doesn't look so dark because I'm applying it over the, you know, an already dark area, okay? But it is getting richer with each layer I put down. Okay, I'm getting... Alright, this is what happens sometimes when you start using the same type of thing. This paper towel is really moist. It's getting... I don't know if you can see that. There's... this is kind of peeling, so it's definitely time for a new paper towel here. It's leaving this kind of crumb on here. Okay, so, but let's do these reeds now. Okay, now, so I stamped out all those reeds in black. This scene is blues and, you know, black now, so I'm going to stamp out some of these reeds in a dark blue to give me even more depth. And it'll kind of create these intermediate impressions to hopefully kind of create a transition between these reeds that are stamped at 90 degrees from each other, okay? So I'll see this is stamped like this right here, but I want this to come around this way so I can utilize the lighter versions, because I'm going to use black on here too. Okay, so we'll come in here like this. It looks like a really light blue because it is so dark everywhere else, okay? Okay, it looks really sloppy right now, but I still have the black to go here, okay? So you can see I added it really down here and trying to create this a little bit of a transition like that, okay? All right, let's go with the black. All right, I need to come up here to create something to transition that one isolated impression, okay? Go really dark here on the perimeter. It's not great, but it's not as bad as it did look, okay? All right, now that's way too busy down there. It's craziness, okay? But what you do is you just add that down there, and then what we do is we come back into it, and we decrease the contrast between all of that busyness and the area behind it. We're going to have to go with black. Let me see. Let me get a new paper towel here. I use things to death. I basically use things until I just cannot use it anymore. Even a a quarter page piece of paper towel. You might as well, you know. Okay, so dare I re-ink this? Let's re-ink this. I don't want to go with a big sopping, super juicy paper towel. I'll try to be careful here, though. Alright, I can tell there's a lot on there. Okay, it's really sopping wet, so I'll stay on the perimeter quite a bit like this. Tap it around, okay? Before I kind of take it into the scene, into the lighter areas. Remember, the perimeter is the darkest. Okay. Alright, let's move up into here. Really busy with all those grass blades. I think this is probably the most I've ever stamped that reed stamp on any scene. And this is only a quarter page scene, so I've done some scenes that are 11 by 17 and many 8.5 by 11s, but this is really the craziest amount that I've ever used, that stamp. And it's one of my favorites, so I've used it a lot. Okay. Alright. That's still bothering me, though. Let's see. Okay. A couple more impressions of it there. Cut and contrast. I don't want to come in too far. I mean, that's pretty far, but I think that'll be good right there. I think before I was thinking that this is right side up and that's side down. This is looking like it's like a gopher's eye view, or like that, huh? It's like we're looking out of a gopher hole. I don't think it's worm's eye view. I think it's gopher or, I don't know, ground squirrel. Maybe something like that. It definitely looks like an eyeball in the sky, though. Okay. Alright. I have these birds here. Maybe I should go for something a little bit bolder. Yeah, let's go for something a little bolder. Let me go grab some birds. Okay, I think I have something. I have this eagle flying around. Oh, this pad is super juicy now after re-inking. Let me make sure it's not over-inked. Okay, let's go about right here. Okay, thanks for a pretty dramatic scene. It's like a this is like a horror scene if you're like a gopher or I don't know, like a nocturnal rodent, you know, seeing something like that up there. And I was thinking just for a contrast and texture, I have these leaves that we can add in here. One of the things about doing these scrap of scenes is I just most definitely come up with compositions that I just never would think of doing, but having to overcome certain areas of these scenes, really, I don't know, it kind of helps with creativity sometime. Like, I would never have a big, gigantic area like that just filled in. I don't know, this creates this, like a, I don't know, oval or not really peanut shape, maybe pistachio shape or something like that down there. But I don't know. I really like doing these types of scenes like this because there's certain definitely areas of the kind of unexpected that come about. And I'm always looking to do different types of scenes and compositions with different media all the time. So I don't know. This is a nice kind of vehicle for me to I don't know, kind of explore that type of I don't know, creative spirit, unexpected, whatever. And I don't know, I should do more of it, but I don't know. I'd have to have some kind of thing to come up with some kind of a layout for me to work around. Okay, so anyways, this is really, really wet, and there are some little types of touches I want to put on here too. So I'm going to allow this to dry. I'm kind of looking at it at an angle. I can tell the impression of the leaves here is a little bit wet, but some pigment ink in here. I don't know if I'll add any highlights to my leaves. I might, but that's kind of looking pretty cool as is. But yeah, let's wait for this to dry, and I'll see about some kind of final touches on this. Alright, we're back. I've allowed this to dry about a half an hour or so. The intensity of the colors still looks pretty good. I don't know, sometimes the distress inks kind of dry to a dull sheen, you know, which all I need to do is spray it and it returns to a kind of a full saturation and intensity. But this, I don't know, this looks pretty good. I don't think I'll need to do that. Okay, so we have our white pigment ink here. I'm just using the Hero Hues Unicorn. I don't know, I think they just call it Unicorn. I think that means the white one. The other ones seem to be Unicorn something, like Unicorn Blue or whatever. But, I don't know, this one's said to be a little bit whiter than some of the other inks. I used to use the Colorbox Frost White by ClearSnap, but ClearSnap's gone, so... but I got this before they had closed up. Someone just... it was recommended by all the stampers at Rubber Soul, formerly in Olympia, Washington. And I believe them, so if they said that this is the whitest white, I had to go get it. I don't know. If I'm ever using anything on my scenes, I'm not like an authority on all of the different media out there. I don't know. Mention it to me in the comment section if there's something I should be trying or whatnot. I don't know. I tend to use what I use, and I'm always interested in if there's a better product out there. But if it's kind of better, then maybe I'll kind of investigate. If someone knows something's a lot better, they'll let me know. Okay, so I'm adding this around this eagle. I'm not putting it over the whole thing. I mean, you could, but I think it's a little bit better if you just kind of... See, I'm kind of toning it from this direction here because that's where the moon is, but see where I've toned in those leaves like that? Doesn't it look like they're reflecting some of that light now? Like right up here and right around here. I don't know. I just think it adds to the textural range. What we're doing is we're adding in other values too. You're not really adding them in, but by the act of putting a translucent white layer over the top of it, what we're doing is we're taking the values of whatever we have and we are decreasing it, making them lighter, right? So you're decreasing this. We're not doing it of the entire object. See, my image is dark. It's black in terms of things like those leaves and the eagle. So what we've done is we are decreasing some of it this way. So instead of it just being one color, now it is this range of grayscale right in here. And from a textural standpoint, that eagle is very sharp. And what we're doing is we're taking one part of it and we're making it softer, okay, by putting that white pigment ink on it. And I don't know, if we're putting it over some blues, we're taking it from bright to dull too. So we're increasing the value, intensity, and textural range of those objects. So instead of it just being here 1, 2, 3 spots, we are increasing it exponentially, really. Because it has that cumulative effect too. What we've done is we've extended the visual information within this piece. Oops, that's a little bit too much. Okay, so when you do that, you're making your pieces more articulate. It's almost like, okay, so this piece right here, I don't know if this was a bad analogy or not, but let's say this piece right here spoke, I don't know, it had the vocabulary range of like 500 words or something like that. By adding this in here like this, it's almost like you're adding in another 1,000 words to this piece here, making it more articulate and I don't know, just more well-rounded of a visually dynamic entity. And you're certainly doing it, with each individual object like this. But when you do it over everything, it just kind of, I don't know, it increases everything overall. I mean, this is like the easiest thing you can possibly do to really expand the range of different types of imagery. I'm talking about like word stamps too. Can you imagine just if you stamp out a word stamp and it says something like, I don't know, texture or something like that, if you imagine this is stamped and if you put kind of pigment ink over some of it, okay, let's say you put it over the top of it, now you have these letters here that are top illuminated, okay? So you can do all kinds of things like that, especially if it's over against a piece of white piece of paper. Okay, so in here, I'm able to add this white in here because I've retained some of the white of the paper here because this is going to represent white light or kind of reflecting off of mist or moisture in the air, and that's why you get this kind of illumination on there like that. But, I mean, it's just a real simple thing to do to really, really expand things. It's not just that you're making something a little bit lighter. You're doing all kinds of things to it to extend the range of so many different things. So, if you don't do it, think about it. Think about doing it in some point in time in the future. What happens is people I mention this in every single video, and I get where people do this, but they ink it up like this, and their pigment ink is just sopping wet, okay? Because we don't use our pigment inks too often, unless you use them like me, like in practically every scene. But the pigment ink, you can have a 20-year-old pad, and you can go like this, and go like that, without kind of tapping it off first, and it could be as juicy as it was 20 years ago. I mean, these inks can be so thick and kind of sloppy. So when people dab it down, it's like, oh my gosh, they panic, there's like this big blob of paint. And, and then they get paranoid about ever doing it again. But you just have to kind of blot it off a lot to where you barely have anything on there, okay? And then what happens is when I say that, people go like that, and they say, hey, I can't see anything. So they go like this and go like blob, But you just have to kind of think about it like you're applying powder. That's the kind of analogy that I make. And that's kind of more of the spirit that you want to apply. Okay, now this is a white paint pen. This is the Miaosun white paint pen. I always put it in my description of everything that I use on my scenes. I don't go into every single color, like, okay, I used a broken china, distress ink, and a light, blue Marvy pad, and, number 60 salvia blue, okay? Because I don't want people to get just jammed up and thinking that, oh, okay, wait, I can't do the scene because I don't have that number 60 salvia light blue, you know what I mean? You should be able to just kind of pick out your range of tones that you're using and just use them accordingly. That's what I used to teach people in my class, is you just pull your inks out, okay? And you just use them from light to dark in whatever color range you're working in, or whatever hue you're working. Just break it down into kind of light, I mean, here's 4 distress inks. I would go with this one, this one, this one, and then this one. It's not because of the inks there, it's just those are the ones I happen to have, and you can just apply them accordingly. Okay, so I'd have people make things visual. I'd have them pull out whatever colors they're going to be using on a scene. So if you're using greens, I'd have them pull out all their greens that they have and lay them out, going from light to dark. And when they start toning their scene in, you just use them in that order. And everyone's scenes came out great. It's a little bit more precarious if you're doing it as an exercise for the first time and you don't pull the pads out, because then people go from a really light color to a lot darker, and they say, well, it's both green, but they didn't use like the 3 intermediates before they got to the darker one. It just makes it a lot easier. Okay, so see, I'm putting these little white highlights on some of these leaves here. And it stands out okay, but you know what I mean? When you look at this at arm's distance, it's not like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of little dots everywhere, okay? But, the closer you get to it, kind of the more they stand out, right? And those little details like that kind of bring a lot of areas to life. It can bring a scene to life too sometimes. You don't have to use it on everyone. I use it on a lot of mine, but even if I don't use it very much, I might even like a couple little dots on some of these grass blades. It can look like kind of little shimmering little highlights of dew in the moonlight like that. See how it kind of brings those little areas to life. It's really dark in here, so I'm not going to use too much of it, but I don't know, find little highlights like that. And as I mentioned in my was in the previous video, what we're doing is we're adding in sharp textures that also happen to be very light, okay? So you're extending kind of the value range of wherever area you're applying them to, but you're also adding the sharp little dot in there. So it's just an area, little tiny details to bring out all those different, I don't know, kind of properties in the various ranges of the properties of those colors, objects, and inks, okay? Okay, so that's it. Another scrap to scene. I wouldn't say that I was worried about it, but kind of 3/4 of the way through, that reed that was sitting like this was still kind of hampering the scene, so I never would have thought to bring in this an 1.5 inch, but that's what it kind of took, because it got so busy down here with, I don't know, 15 impressions of this in the dark blue and black, but I just brought it up that way and that looked fine, and then, I don't know, it kind of took on a different spirit. Like I said, I feel like I'm looking up through, it's like a gopher or something like that, or a rodent, kind of thinking about coming out of his, his little den or something like that, and kind of checking out the area to make sure the coast is clear, which it obviously is not. So this moon up here is pretty fun. It's kind of like I don't know, it reminds me of like an eye in the sky type of thing. This is like the little pupil right here, so it's kind of an ominous type of visual on different levels. You have a kind of a rodent, or I don't know, prey and hunter up there, but it also can be kind of I don't know, reminiscent of, like I said, like an eyeball or something like that, appearing down at us or whatnot. These like are eyelashes or something like that. So I don't know, a word of warning for some, and I don't know, I think it's quite nice in terms of a jeweled tone on the other hand. So anyways, hope you liked the scene. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section.